First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
Welcome to WUFT News First at 5. I'm Galo.
And I'm Emily Palazzotto. Thanks for joining us.
Another storm is forming in the Atlantic and may make its way towards Florida.
WUFT's Mariana Larsen joins us now with an update on subtropical storm Nicole.
Nicole is making its way towards Florida and it is set to make landfall on the east central coast of Florida Wednesday night. And it is going to hit as a Category 1, but as it moves up towards Georgia, it is going to weaken again to a tropical storm. Now, even though here in Alachua County we are going to feel the tropical storm impacts, it is still important to make sure that you are preparing for it nonetheless. Make sure that you have all the preparations that you need, such as batteries, water bottles. Make sure you're taking everything off your lawn and just stay prepared. Here's the 6-day forecast, and I'll explain the hurricane more when we get back from the break.
Thanks, Mariana. With hurricane season coming to a close later this month, Floridians are gearing up for subtropical storm Nicole. Sandbagging operations got underway this morning in Sanford, Flagler Beach, and other areas. Rain predictions range from 2 to 6 inches. Nicole is another big storm, and half of the state's 67 counties are under the first emergency order, including Flagler, Putnam, and Clay. Tomorrow's election may squeeze in before the heaviest rains from Nicole, but the devastation from Hurricane Ian is the reason early voting is still going on in Fort Myers. Lee County lost buildings or can't staff all the normal precincts, so the 12 early voting locations are continuing to operate today and tomorrow. Normally, counties take at least Monday off, and often Sunday and Monday off to regroup for a major election on Tuesday. The advantage of staying in early voting mode: anyone could vote in any location, and they could drop off mail ballots at any secure intake station.
Early voting is over, all but the counting, for nearly 5 million Floridians, which is more than a third of the state's registered voters.
They took advantage of in-person early voting or vote by mail, and you can still hand in a vote by mail ballot through 7 p.m. tomorrow. On Election Day, voters must go to their assigned voting place. If you do not know where your assigned precinct is, visit votealachua.gov and click My Registration Status. You could also call 352-374-5252 between 8:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. tomorrow. Don't forget a valid photo ID when you go to the polling stations.
This is your future that you're deciding on when you get to vote. Your leadership, how the issues will end up panning out in the next couple of years. Everyone cares about this community.
WUFT News will be covering results tomorrow night on radio, TV, our website, and social media.
Traditionally blue Miami-Dade County could turn red this election cycle. Miami-Dade had not favored a Republican governor for 20 years, since Jeb Bush back in 2002. Early voting is hinting it might happen, with the turnout giving Republicans the unusual early advantage, one that might widen with Election Day voting tomorrow.
Hospitalization rates for the flu are at a decade high. That's according to the CDC, which says the early season is bringing severe cases to the elderly and young children. The agency estimates there have been 1.6 million cases of the flu so far, as well as 13,000 hospitalizations and 730 deaths. The CDC also noted that flu vaccinations are down among adults.
A ride down 13th Street through Paynes Prairie will eventually take you to small, unassuming McIntosh. Over the weekend, the town had thousands of visitors for its annual 1890s festival. WUFT's Shawn Humphrey checked it out, and he has more on the story.
McIntosh has never been a town of more than 500 people, but that doesn't stop visitors from lining 441 once a year to get a taste of its 1890s festival.
It's an example of how it was at the turn of the century. We used to have a lot of agricultural crops grown, and the train would take them to Jacksonville to distribute and sell all over the country, and it's a time gone by.
The town has held the festival every year since 1974. The town's nonprofit, Friends of McIntosh, sponsors the event. The vendors love it.
Well, this tent right here represents a bunch of hard, long hours.
And they love to serve.
It's gratifying. It's rewarding. It makes all them long hours you put in that you wish you were sitting down somewhere, makes it feel like it's paying off, you know, and people really like it. So, yeah, I like it. And you recognize, you know, people recognize, they know my name. I don't know half their names, but they know my name. So, and they're soon going to learn Katie's name here before it's over with.
McIntosh's 1890s festival isn't short on Southern hospitality. From fiddlesticks to boiled peanuts, this event is as country as it gets. The newcomers can't get enough of it.
This festival is awesome. This is our first time coming here. We tried to get in last year, couldn't quite make the deadline. It's an awesome opportunity. Packed crowds. It's fun to interact with the small town folk, and its breadth is really wide, but it's really fun to be able to interact with your customers.
Thousands flock to the festival every year, and after spending a few hours there, it was easy to see why. The sights, sounds, smells, and people welcome you with open arms. For WUFT News, I'm Shawn Humphrey.
With Thanksgiving coming up, I'm so excited to go home and see my family.
Me too. I'm just fingers crossed when I go back to New York to celebrate that my flight doesn't get delayed along with everyone else's headed home for the holidays. Coming up on WUFT News first at 5, as travel gets more expensive, the government is making strides to add some relief for passengers. Stay with us.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. Researchers in Brazil are working to confirm whether consuming a diet high in processed foods could lead to an earlier death. The researchers modeled data on consumption of ultra-processed foods. They found over 500,000 adults died prematurely in 2019 after consuming large amounts of highly processed foods. Examples of ultra-processed foods are frozen pizza, ready-to-eat meals, hot dogs, cakes, candies, sausages, sodas, and donuts. High consumption has been associated with an increase in diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer.
Despite Delta pilots authorizing a potential future strike, Delta's CEO expects the two sides to solve things at the bargaining table. The soonest a strike could take place is a month after impasse, so Thanksgiving travel is safe. Delta's CEO feels the same way about Christmas travel, too. He says two sides are closer to a deal than people think.
Unlike the rising cost of most travel as we head into the holidays, the cost for TSA PreCheck is dropping. TSA PreCheck's provider is reducing enrollment and in-person renewal costs from $85 to $78. The cost to renew online is still $70. You'll get a 5-year membership with PreCheck. Passengers get expedited security screenings and can keep on their shoes, belts, and even jackets.
Speaking of TSA checks, there could be an upcoming storm could impact your travel plans this week.
Mariana Larsen tells us more about what you can expect coming up. Mariana?
Subtropical storm Nicole is set to make landfall on Florida Wednesday night, but we may feel some effects even sooner than that. When? I'll let you know after the break.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Here in north central Florida, it is feeling nice and mild outside. Take a look at the temperatures right now. Gainesville, it is feeling like 77, and we are seeing 70s and even some 80s across the board as that sun is going down. Now, speaking of sun going down, let's take a look at what's in store for tonight. We're expecting to see lows in the mid 60s, and we're going to have mostly clear skies. Now for tomorrow, we have the perfect weather for Election Day. We have temperatures hitting the lower 80s, and we are going to see some clouds in the sky, but not too much as it's going to be mostly sunny. So take a stroll outside and go vote if you haven't already. Now the big story for this week is going to be Nicole. As I mentioned earlier, subtropical storm Nicole is going to be headed into our area. It's going to make landfall on the east central coast of Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, but as it moves up the state, it is going to weaken back into a tropical storm. And take a look, it is just going to make its way all the way up through Georgia, and we are going to be feeling those effects until at least Friday. Now, the main thing that we are going to be seeing is the rain. Here in Alachua County, we are expecting 2 to 4 inches of rain, but if you live along the coastline, you might see even more of that rain, as well as some surge flood. Now take a look at the surge alerts for north central Florida. If you live along the coast, almost all of the areas are in a watch right now, but there are some areas that have a wider range than others. Like for example, Jacksonville and St. Augustine has a wider range because of the St. Johns River, because that also has the potential of flooding. So if you live in those cities, just keep an extra eye out for that. Here are the winds for tomorrow. We are expecting to see winds start to hit us by Wednesday night and move into our area here in Alachua County by Thursday morning. Let's take a look at the 6-day outlook. It is going to look like a rainy weekend. Well, it's going to look rainy on Thursday and Friday, but hopefully by Saturday and Sunday, the true weekend, we are going to see some sun again. Back to you.
Thanks, Mariana. With some park renovations, Gainesville is starting to embrace a recreational sport that's taking off across America. You may have heard of pickleball by now. WFT's Macie Goldfarb takes us to the courts to show us how it draws people of all ages.
One word.
You hear laughing and joking.
10 letters.
This is a social event.
The fastest growing sport in America.
You come here and people are happy to see you even if they've never seen you before.
From college campuses to senior centers, pickleball
4-7-1
is a crowd favorite.
As soon as you pick up that paddle and hit it a few times, you're hooked.
81-year-old Bob Crow says it's far from a fad. An ex-tennis player, he made the switch to pickleball half a dozen years ago.
I wanted to give it a try and good move, yes.
Lower nets and underhand serves allow for what Bob says is a more fair start than in tennis. Still, he's working to master the sport. He's even put his skills to the test in 2 doubles tournaments.
Didn't win a game. Had a great time.
But for Bob and the other players at Gainesville's Northside Park, pickleball isn't all about winning. Above all else, it's a social event.
You better get out there.
And anyone is welcome.
We are here to share in a good time. And it doesn't matter how you present. Again, we see all ages and races and physical conditions, and nobody pays attention to it.
This atmosphere attracts players from all over the city. Bob says some days he can count 100 people at Northside Park looking to get their pickleball fix. But because this park has the only 4 courts dedicated to pickleball in Gainesville, waiting can be inevitable.
You come to play, not wait.
Some players resort to using portable nets on tennis and basketball courts around Alachua County. And it works.
Darn temporary courts.
Sort of. No one likes to share. Even so, these players aren't going anywhere. It's a small price to pay.
Oh, geez, that was dead meat.
To play.
People talk about the culture of pickleball, which is different. I don't think you talk about the culture of golf or something.
A community of nearly 5 million players in the U.S. so far, and that number is growing. Fast. All for a certain culture that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. In Alachua County, Macie Goldfarb, WUFT News.
Amy, I have to know, are you excited for basketball season to start?
Of course I am. It's so exciting because Gator basketball teams will be starting their seasons very soon. The women's team starts their games shortly, and the men's team will be starting a new era under a new coach. We'll have information about that and more when we come back.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Tonight marks the start of the season for 2 Gator teams. Both the women's basketball team and the men's basketball team will play tonight. The Gator women's team tips off in just a few minutes. Last season, the Gators made it to the NCAA tournament, but lost to the UCF Knights in the first round. This will be Kelly Ray Finley's 2nd season as head coach of the Gators. The game is against the Florida A&M Rattlers, and it starts at 5:30. The golden era is just hours from getting underway for the Florida men's basketball program. Gator coach Todd Golden makes his Gator coaching debut tonight when the team welcomes Stony Brook to the O'Connell Center. The men's team will play right after the women's game ends. Golden had this to say about his debut with the Gators.
No, I'm excited. Again, like we've been working towards this for about 6 months now, and I'm relatively comfortable, being on the sideline. Like it's going to be an awesome experience. I'm looking forward to walking out there for the first time. But I know once the ball goes up, like it'll be just like competing, whether I was coaching at Columbia or coaching at San Francisco. But it's basketball, 40 minutes. It's going to be a pretty sweet experience being out there.
The Gator football team avoided a 3-game losing streak by beating Texas A&M on Saturday. The Gators have been helped out by the improved play of quarterback Anthony Richardson. Over the last 3 games, Richardson has 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and 657 passing yards. He also has added on 250 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Now with a 5-4 record, the Gators are just 1 win away from bowl eligibility. Gator coach Billy Napier talked about the team's culture going into the last few games of the season.
I think we've worked hard on the connection part, the relationship part. Brotherhood is a term that was used last week to kind of describe, what we're trying to create here.
Sticking with Gators winning games, the Gator volleyball team swept the Missouri Tigers. Mariana Markova led the way for the Gators as she was responsible for 16 kills. Merritt Beeson was second behind her with 13 kills. Florida is number 1 in the SEC with a 19-4 record overall and an 11-2 record against SEC opponents. That record puts them number 11 in the coaches' poll. Florida now has a few days before they travel to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies, who are just 4-10 in the SEC. The Gator baseball and softball teams had exhibition games on Sunday and are close to finishing up fall ball. The Gator baseball team won a doubleheader against Stetson. The first game was a score of 7-6, and the second game was a 5-1 score in 7 innings. They have one more fall baseball game when they play the Orange and Blue World Series on Saturday. The Gator softball team also won their exhibition game against North Florida 12-1. They have won all 5 of their fall games. The softball team's last fall game is on Sunday against the College of Central Florida.
Before we go, one last check on the weather.
We are keeping an eye on subtropical storm Nicole as it makes its way towards Florida. Take a look at the track with me. You can see that it is set to hit Florida as a Category 1 storm, but it is going to weaken back into a tropical storm. So make sure you are prepared for that. Even if it is going to hit your area just as a tropical storm, it is still important to prepare. Here's the 6-day outlook. It is going to be a rainy Veterans Day this week. Back to you.
Thanks, Mariana. BBC World News is next, and the PBS News Hour is coming up at 7.
But your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org. Have a good night.